Thank you for Mr. Anwar al-Bunni for coming here emergently, and thank you for State Department to issue a visa also emergently at the last minute. Today, we welcome you, all of you, in sharing our event, ceremonial event of rewarding Mr. Anwar al-Bunni. So Mr. Anwar al-Bunni, very brief introduction about him. He is a human rights lawyer from Syria, was born in 1959 in Hama, to Christian family, activist in dissident leftist politics. He is famously known for taking the lead in defending civil opponents and political prisoners of Syrian regime dictator Bashar Assad. Mr. al-Bunni suffered extreme brutality, torture, and imprisonment under the tyrannical Assad regime in Syria. He was beaten and having his beard set on fire by Syrian soldiers during a military sweep of Hama 1981. Mr. al-Bunni, having spent most of his life defending Syria, political dissident, often pro bono, and having sold his automobile and office to pay his bills as a result. He was head of the short-lived European Union-founded human rights training center in Syria called the Center for Legal Research and Studies until it was shut down by Bashar Assad authoritarian regime, followed by his 2006 arrest. Mr. al-Bunni defended Damascus Spring activist Arif Dalila at his 2002 trial. He was ordered and banned from practicing before a Syrian Supreme State Security Court. In May 2006, Mr. al-Bunni was detained by Assad security forces after signing the Beirut-Damascus Declaration calls for democratic reform. A year later, he was given a 5-year sentence for a so-called spreading false or exaggerated news that could weaken national morals, affiliating with an unlicensed political association with an international nature, discrediting the state institution, and contacting foreign country. He was also fined the equivalent of $2,000 for operating the Center for Legal Research Studies funded by EU without government permission. Analysts describe the sentences as more severe than those previously given for similar offenses, making it a stark warning to Syrian opposition. Amnesty International had designated Mr. al-Bunni a prisoner of conscience, and US President George Bush named al-Bunni in a speech as a political prisoner unfairly jailed by the Syrian regime. After his release from prison in 2008, he continued to defend detainees. Mr. al-Bunni escaped from Syria in 2012, shortly after the Hawala massacre, a mass murder of civilians by Assad terrorist regime forces that took place in May 25, 2012, in which, according to the United Nations, 108 civilians were killed, including 34 women and 49 children. He later sought political asylum in Germany. In Germany, Mr. al-Bunni participated in a universal jurisdiction war crimes trial of Anwar and Iyad al-Ghuraib. In June 2020, he provided testimony as a witness on the horror and bureaucratic structure of Assad jails and torture chambers, based on his 5 years as a prisoner in Syria and from his legal experience in presenting victims. Mr. al-Bunni worked with prosecutors to help find witnesses willing to testify in the trial. Mr. al-Bunni has become more broadly interested in promoting transitional justice. In 2014, Russia and China used their UN Security Council veto to block the referral of atrocities in Syria to International Criminal Court, which would have allowed for prosecution of those crimes. The veto moved justice even farther out of reach for victims. Mr. al-Bunni and his colleague Mazen Darwish took action. They were both had been imprisoned in Syria and subsequently fled to Europe. There, they supported German prosecutors who were using the legal concept of universal jurisdiction, pursued a former Syrian military intelligence officer, Mr. Ruslan, who fled to Germany. In January, a court in Germany, city of Koblenz convicted former intelligence officer Anwar and senior Syrian officials to be put on trial of a crime against humanity for overseeing the systemic torture of detainees. He was sentenced to life in prison. Mr. al-Bunni and Darwish not only testified at the trial, but also led efforts to gather evidence and witnesses that were vital for this historic case. Mr. Kenneth Roth said, quote, that this dent in impunity behind so many atrocities in Syria, one of several similar prosecutions underway, bears a measure bears a measure of respect to the victim and provides hope for further justice. These prosecutions can help to deter further atrocities in Syria and elsewhere. In 2008, Mr. Albunni received the Frontline Award for Human Rights Defender at Risk. The following year, he was awarded the Human Rights Award by the German Association of Justices. In 2018, he received the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law. Mr. al-Bunni also features in the Time magazine as the most 100 influential people. Please welcome Mr. Anwar al-Bunni, our hero, the human rights defender. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Sham. Thank you, Assad, and everybody to coming and share this time with us. Sorry, I am not hero. I am just Syrian who feel as any Syrians. Maybe I have some results because I have tools and I know how I deal with my tools, and I find space to use my tools. But every Syrians have same feeling like me. Maybe they haven't tools, maybe haven't experienced to use the tools, or they haven't space to use it. If any Syrians have this conditioner, they will be better than me for sure. I am sure about that. Thank you for introducing. Really, the problem, especially after the Ukraine war, the Syrian case go back to the next step, or nobody care about what happened in Syria. And my belief, if the world care about what happened in Syria, maybe we will not see the Ukrainian war. That this mistake of the world to deal with the crisis or the situation like Syria, the mistake of the world when they failed to deal with the dictatorship. Until now, they repeat their mistake in other countries, in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Yemen. They repeat same mistake and ignored the people claiming freedom and democracy. It's a problem to deal with like this situation just in politics side, to deal with it just for the humanitarian issue, not as big problem, millions of people suffering from it. For that, justice, it's maybe will be key. Now everybody's stuck in front of wall, and the situation in Syria stuck for a long time. And in fact, here the problem in US, because US lead the freedom world, and US unfortunately don't have any strategy for Syria. For that, they left the space for other small player, really region player, like Gulf, like Turkey, like Iran. Until Russia, it's not big, huge, or huge power. It's now region player, like Iran. They let them, Syria and whole the region, to play. And they deal with the action with reaction, just action and reaction, without any strategy, how it will be going on. Until if their strategy was to make this curiosity or this mass in the area, if their strategy to do that, they succeed for sure. But I don't think the strategy of US to make mass in that area, because it will be affect very much and very bad about the interest of US in the world. So there is now Syria 2011, 2012 was very simple cases. Now it's more complicated and more complicated to speak about it. There is dictatorship kill his people. Now there is a lot of country, I think 8 countries involved military in Syria, and more 40 countries involved with another kind of action. So in this stuck, there is way to deal with it with principle about justice. And that's what we try to focus about it. To be justice the key to go in the road to fix all the problem in Syria. When we identified the criminals as criminals, they will not be able to be part of our future. That means all the world must not deal with these criminals, from the regime and from other regime, from the other side, Medici or Kurdish, PYD, or National Army, or Jabhat al-Nusra, or Ahrar al-Sham, or every criminal must to be, he is a criminal and will not allowed to be part of political solution. This is so important. Everybody speak about political solution, and we believe with political solution. That means not about political solution what happened in Lebanon before, or in Colombia. The biggest criminals award them as Nobel Peace Award. It's disaster. It's give advantage for all criminals in whole the world. Do what you want, and maybe Bashar Assad now dreaming. If we make agreement at last, I will have Nobel Prize for peace. They encouraging the dictatorship, and that's what push Putin to do what he want in Ukraine, because he did that in Georgia before and took Al-Qurum before, and nobody give any action, and involved in Syria and kill a lot of Syrians, and trying 300 kind of weapon on the Syrian people. And he published that, and he was proud about that, and nobody make any action. All of us now pay price about all that, ignoring the crimes, ignoring the criminals, and try to make agreement with the criminals, and it will not happen. And we have recently a sample in Sudan. The biggest criminals in al-Bashir times, when they be part of the transitional period, they make problem. It's not can be the criminals be part of the future, and there is no any stable in any country if the criminals be part of the political solution. And Sudan case now, it's so clear example about that. So this is the message I want to deliver it here in Washington, to the politics, to you, journalists, to everybody can affect or try to do something to change, to be some strategy how we can reach, not in Syria just, in whole the world. Every people demand freedom must to have it, without pay a lot of price like Syria. Syria must to be example for all the people, not to be example for all the dictatorship. That's what we try to do it here. Thank you very much for your hosting. And
thank you, Anwar.